Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Yep. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're in class with us today. John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. And if you'd like to call us, we're going to be talking about generators, mostly. 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. My dear friend Kurt Wilson is with us. Welcome, Kurt.
What's happening, Vinny?
You know, it's absolutely fascinating to me how when we talk, you'll share with me a story about something that's happening in your life, and it coincides, perfectly with what's happening in my life, so far away, many states away. And
well, how do you know I don't just have precognition?
Well, okay. Well, it's working. and we're going to tell you some of these stories today in class. We're going to talk about things that are happening with automobile mechanics, meaning performing automobile service on vehicles for people we know. We're going to talk about how that's working. But I want to share a story with you. Yesterday, I decided to call two people in the firearms industry. One of them is O.F. Mossberg, and the other one is Federal Cartridge. And I got completely opposite ends of the spectrum customer attention. Let's start with the negative one. So I have a couple boxes of Federal Cartridges, shotgun shells. One of them is labeled American Eagle copper-plated heavy loads. Another one is multi-purpose loads from Federal. Both 12 gauge, unopened. And there was a crossover, a changeover from all lead shot to, environmentally friendlier steel shot, and then maybe even some hybrid shot, meaning the projectiles, the pellets, used to be all lead. And then they went to steel because of the fouling of the water, if you were duck hunting or something. And then it looks like the steel was kind of rough on some of the shotgun barrels, so maybe there was some crossover, I don't know. So I decided to call Federal and just ask them a simple question, or a couple questions about how can I tell, can they point me to a website that I could not find that would say, this box is lead, this box is steel, this box is, an alloy of some kind. So I couldn't find it, so I called Federal, and this millennial answers the phone. And I got to tell you, not all millennials are like this, but I'm meeting more of them than I'd like to. So this gal says, what's your first name? I already gave her my first name. And what's your last name? Okay. I just have a question about, your product. And what's your phone number? And I said, Tamara, do you have a last name? And she said, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to give it out. I said, oh, so you want my first name, my last name, my phone number, but you won't tell me yours. I get it. I don't want to do business with you. I don't want to do business with Federal Cartridge. And what they've done is they've taken a loyal customer and they turned me into someone who wants to shop anywhere else but Federal because they don't know how to handle customers. They don't train. Millennials need more training than they're getting, in my opinion.
Well, the problem with millennials is that their whole vision on life is that they're entitled. So they feel that they are owed everything, and they are the best there is. It's a problem that actually I'll be addressing on my show this Sunday.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's annoying to me. Now let me switch over to the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay. Now all I wanted from Federal Cartridge was, can you point me to a website that'll give me a chart to tell me what's what? You know, what your products are made with, which are lead, which aren't, which are alloy. I wasn't asking him to send me something for free. Okay. Here's the opposite end of the spectrum. So I bought this shotgun years ago, and I bought it from a guy. He's all perfectly above board at a gun show, and they call us a gun show loophole. It's not a loophole. It's our right to be able to buy personal property from someone else. So this guy happened to have this Mossberg shotgun, and it was clear that he was interested in selling it through body language, posture, where he was sitting, that kind of thing. And I said, wow, that's really neat. May I look at it? And he said, sure. And it happened to be a camouflage turkey gun, Mossberg 500. So if you know about Mossberg, my opinion is Mossberg makes quality, affordable products. They work, and they're a really good value. Okay, they're not the very, very best. It's not a Finelli shotgun, but it works, and it's a really good value. And I think he wanted maybe $235 for it. Okay, sounds all right to me. And so this turkey gun is 12 gauge, and it will hold 6 rounds, 5 in the tube and 1 in the chamber, and it's just fine for my purposes. And some of those purposes might be self-defense class. Anyway, I called Mossberg because the site was broken, or I thought it was broken, and I said, can you help me? The site isn't working right on the rear of this shotgun. And he said, well, describe what's going on. So I described that, it's at a 20-degree angle and it was springy. He said, well, if you turn the screw, what does that do? And I said, well, it really doesn't do anything because the screw doesn't bottom out where it would adjust the sight of the rear sight. He said, oh, sounds like it's broken to me. Would it be okay if I send you one? Wow. Well, yeah, that'd be wonderful. So I said, okay, I'll send you one. He said, I will need the serial number. I said, of course. So I gave him the serial number, gave him my name and address. And they're sending FedEx, Federal Express, no charge, a rear sight. They didn't say, we want a picture of it, send the old one back. He absolutely just believed me. The complete opposite of Federal Cartridge. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about Mossberg.
Let me tell you 2 things. One, let me tell you how I handle that. When I get one of these little smart-ass, self-involved millennials on the phone, and it could be in anything. It could be a problem with your phone. It could be a problem with your car. It could be a problem with a shirt you just bought. Look at anything. I call up, it's just like you, and they say, "Oh, sure, I'll help you. What's your first name, last name? What's your address, phone number?" And I'm like, "Honey, we don't. No, I don't. Let me rephrase it." And I've used this line, honey, we don't really need all that. All you need to do is answer my question. And she goes, well, we can't answer your question until we have all this data. And I say, oh, good. Give me your supervisor, please. And I insist. And they end up giving me somebody who claims their supervisor, managerial position, whatever. And I explained to them, I said, it really is none of your business who and what I am. I called into your store for a question. I just want the question answered. I've gone all the way up to the assistant to the CEO in a company because nobody would take the responsibility of answering a question without acting like a little robot. It's simple. They have this screen that pops up, and to handle problems, they have to fill everything out. Well, they need to use some common sense, and they don't. You use GoDaddy?
I do.
Okay, so you ever called in
use GoDaddy.
Support? Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever calling tech support?
Yes.
Okay. These guys, I call them in. I've got 7 domains, and they've been with GoDaddy for 20 years. I was the first gun shop in the world on the internet in the 80s. And I called in, and I give them my customer number, and they're supposed to ask you all of these questions, blah, 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 blah. And they say, what's your name? So I can, with respect, communicate with you. I say, it's Kurt. What can I do for you, Kurt? That's it. What can I do for you? And I tell them the problem, and they say, oh, let's figure this out. Instead of going through this robot crap. Look, it's the same thing in retail stores. My son and I went to Walmart, and I wanted a box of wine. So I go in, I get a box of wine, and I set it on the counter, and the drone that works behind the counter goes, may I see your ID, please? And I said, no. I'm 65 years old. And she goes, well, I can't sell it to you if I don't have your ID. And I said, honey, can you look at me, please? Do I look like I'm under 21? Well, they tell us that we have to check your IDs of everyone. I said, okay, let me get your manager over here. I want to check his ID. So manager came over with a security. And it doesn't matter. Put those two together, they're still not my size. So I said, I would find this insulting if I was this woman here, that you treat her like she is so stupid that she can't properly evaluate on her own the age of somebody who looks as old as I do. I would really, in fact, if I were her, I'd quit right now. And they were flabbergasted. Well, that manager no longer works there. He got fired because I went to corporate.
Yeah. Good for you. Whenever you go to Walmart corporate, whenever you call them, the manager has to fill out a report as to how he or she responded. Every time you talk to the corporate headquarters about a specific store, the manager has to respond. You can drive them crazy just by calling corporate headquarters. Remember that, class. Kurt Wilson's with us. He's a broadcaster. His radio show is the Armchair Survivalist radio show. Kurt, how can we listen to you?
Well, you go to armchairsurvivalist.com, and it tells you. I'm on satellite. I'm on 2 satellite feeds. I'm on shortwave. You can listen on the internet at armchairsurvivalist.com. There's even an app for me. In fact, there's 2 of them. Just go to your app store, and it's Google, and search for Armchair Survivalist, and you'll find it. I'm on Sundays, 2 to 4 Pacific time, and whenever Vinny calls me up, I can't say no to him. I got to go be on his show. Hey, I got a cute story for you. This is true. This is about Mossberg, because you mentioned it. Mossberg is the oldest family-owned firearms manufacturer in the United States. They started about 1920. Now, this is going to blow your mind. I was approached. I was a master gunsmith for 25 years. I was approached by a member of the Russian Secret Service when I was in Modesto, California, and he said, "We know that you deal with finding things for countries," because I did. We need a self-defense shotgun that we can sell in the Soviet Union that's simple and cheap. So I called up, not knowing better, I called up Mossberg, and I told them the whole story. And they said, well, we've been kicking around having some manufacturing done in Mexico and cutting some frills off of our standard Mossberg shotgun and making that. How many would you buy it at one time? I said 10,000. So I got back a hold of the Soviets and told them what was going on, and they said, that's great. And then they would pay $100 a piece, and I would get a 10% finder's fee. And then the next thing you know, I get a letter from the United States State Department saying that you're out of bounds, you're not allowed to deal with a foreign country, with munitions and this kind of stuff. And I called them on the phone, and I said, look, I'm a licensed firearms dealer. I can export and do all the rest of the stuff. And they said, well, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And 2 days later, there was a front page article about how Bill Clinton was helping the Soviets by allowing them to purchase American-made weapons. And the Maverick shotgun was born.
Yep.
That was what the Maverick was. It still is. It's a good shotgun, no frills, made in Mexico. Well, everything is made in Mexico. The parts, it's assembled in Texas. But that son of he stole the whole deal right out from underneath me.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey,
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who respects that family.
I do.
Really don't.
I know people who respect that family, but they themselves are not respectable.
Okay. Well, that's a fascinating story. So, since we've mentioned Mossberg, I was just going to ask you, what is your overall opinion? You know, if you look at the older names of shotguns, since we mentioned this, what comes to my mind is Winchester, Remington, and Mossberg. Do you have a favorite in terms of value for our class?
Remington 870 steel frame.
Okay.
The Remington 870 all of those shotgun companies are into the alloy frames, and that's all well and good, but they scratch easy. You can't really refinish them. I like the tried and true Remington 870. And there's all kinds of add-ons you can buy for it: shorter barrels, longer tubes. You can hold more ammo. I mean, everything. There's all kinds of stuff you can buy. You can put folding stocks on them. So there's all kinds of things. And every police department in the United States at one time had Remington 870 shotguns. I know because I refinished thousands of them. They're very solid.
Okay.
They'll take a whacking. It's solid wood stocks.
Yeah, one last thought. What do you think of the Remington 870 Marine shotgun?
Oh, yeah. Rust-proof. Well, kind of. Stainless steel. Well, there's stainless steel, and then there's nickel-coated. And I prefer the stainless.
Right.
You still got to oil it, though, because it's stainless maybe, but it's not rustless.
All right, we'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us, and joining us on the telephone, Kyle in Montana. Welcome, Kyle.
Good morning, gentlemen. You know, you and Kurt and me, you sort of, all of us remind me of your cows. We're all outstanding in the field.
I thought it might have something to do with four stomachs.
Yeah. Oh, we can almost equal one cow. You know, you were talking about poor customer service, and you know who has been probably the worst customer service that I have seen is this Zeno Radio Network, because they still don't have a call-in listen line for you, and it's been almost a year. It's just it's ridiculous. I don't.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I can do. I can go and copy what you just said. Okay, I've got some software that I can download the broadcast. I can copy that clip and I can email it to them. But you know, in terms of customer service, I think the new ubiquitous universal motto for companies now is, well, we're no worse than anybody else. I think.
Oh, it's amazing. You know, I agree with Kurt. You know, I've had Mossbergs over the years, and, you know, in all the years, I've got 2 of them now, and I've had probably 20 in my lifetime, different ones. And you know, the reality is I have never had one of those shotguns fail in any way, shape, or form. For a cheap gun, man, they're least expensive, but I've had 1 or 2 Remingtons too. They functioned well as well, but Mossberg was always what I could afford, you know. So,
well, the Mossberg, if you want a self-defense shotgun that is the lightest, you put a pistol grip on it, you put an 18-inch barrel on it, and you don't add anything else to it. That is the lightest self-defense 12-gauge you can buy is the Mossberg.
Yeah. And it'll function your lifetime. I mean, I don't know if you were to put, 500 rounds through it every day, what would happen, but, for self-defense, what you might use once or twice in your entire life, unless the Schumer has his way. then it'll last you a lifetime.
Gentlemen,
by the way, you mentioned the word humor. My wife is studying ancient Germanic languages, and the word humor basically means worthless, good for nothing.
Really, boy.
But me, I use it as a synonym because there's certain words you can't say on the air.
Since you mentioned the shotgun, I wasn't particularly crazy about the camouflage style stock and coating on the barrel. I really didn't like that. My favorite is wood and steel. I mean, that's what I like the best. But I decided that for the price, the size, and the universal applications that this particular turkey gun could be applied, I liked it. I mean, for so little money, just a little over a couple $100, it made a lot of sense to me. And I wanted to tell you that I mentioned when I was on the phone with Mossberg, I said, I have a set of tools that I believe came with the Model T Ford, the service tools made by O.F. Mossberg. And I said, that's right. That's right. They did make tools for, I'm talking in the 1920s. They made tools. They're an old company. They're fabulous, fabulous company. And the customer service does not get any better than Mossberg. It really doesn't. They didn't ask me to prove anything.
Wow.
Not like Walmart.
You bet. I'll tell you, just as an example, too, of another really good company, there's this plumbing company. I bought a couple of drain-back faucets from Lowe's when we were moving in here because I wanted water out by our chicken coop and stuff, and one of them died on me. It won't allow water up or anything, and I called their customer service the other day, and because it says don't call Lowe's, call us, and so I got a hold of the most helpful guy I ever ran into in my life. I told him I wasn't online. Yeah, I told him, I said, I'm not online. He says, well, I'll tell you what, let me print out the entire schematic for these things, and I'll send it to you in the mail. I mean, just boom. Yeah.
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be, and that's the way it used to be. What was the name of this company?
Pro Plumber. I can't remember exactly, Vince. I'll find out, though, and call in one of these days and give him a plug, because the only thing that bugged me about it was I've had some of these old drain-back faucets. The one that's there in my middle of the yard has been there before I moved in, and I know the guy that installed it. He installed it about 30 years ago, and here I put these two in, and they don't even, they don't last but a couple of years. But at the same time, still, that's good customer service regardless of the fact that it failed. It could have been something on my part, but I don't think so. I'm just going to have to tear it apart and find out. But anyway, I just wanted to chime in a little bit. I got to leave here in a little bit, so I won't catch the whole program, but I sure do enjoy Kurt's broadcast, folks. If you really want a great one, tune in on Sundays, because it's something me and my wife, like 99% of the time, we'll never miss. We'll even put the phone on in the car while we're driving home from running errands in church, after church on Sunday, to catch it. So it's a really good program. And Vince, it's always great to listen to you. I appreciate you very much,
Kyle, I appreciate it. And just one thought. So when you're in church, what would happen if you said to your pastor, tell you what, there's this guy, I think he would do a really good sermon. His name is Kurt Wilson. Can I just set my phone right here by your microphone, and we'll just spend the next hour with Kurt?
Well, I don't think he would go for that. But I got to tell you, he's a really, I got to admit, our pastor here is lovely. He's a hunter, a fisherman, and that kind of thing. He's very well educated, very smart guy, and very humble for as smart as he is. He's probably only in his late 30s, but he's a very humble guy and very wise. I got to tell you, he's probably one of the best pastors I've ever been under in my entire life. But anyway, like you said, Vince, a long time ago, you don't have to go through an intermediary to be taught to God, to get to God. And he believes the same thing. It's really he's been a good blessing in my life. Huge.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Anyway, I'll let you guys finish up and out because I've got to get out of here. But thanks for all that you do, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kyle in Montana, USA Prepares Instructor. Yeah, Kyle's one of us. He's, not only, he started out as a student and he became an instructor, and his wife, Sharon, is an instructor as well. She teaches us about canning and pickling and those kinds of things. So, Kurt, generators. I was on the air and we got a call from truck driver Jay, and he calls from all over the country, and he wanted to know about generators. And I said on the air, we can do that. We can do that in depth. And let me call Kurt Wilson. And and so here we are. So truck driver Jay, this is what you wanted to hear. And we're going to talk about generators. Now, let me just preface this that we're talking about, for the most part, generators to power your home in case of an emergency. And they come in different grades. There are durable generators, there are inexpensive generators, there are diesel generators that are really heavy, they're hard to move around. There are propane generators that you can have on standby with software and computer control that will monitor when your power goes out, and it'll fire that generator right up. But there are pros and cons to all of these, including how much they cost to feed. And we'll be talking about the fuels. We'll be talking about gas versus gasoline versus propane gas versus natural gas versus diesel. Kurt, where would you like to start?
Well, you find basically where I would start, and I've done numerous shows on generators, not just generators, but how to silence them. Because in an emergency situation, and I don't just mean when the lights go out, I mean when the Schumer hits the fan, anybody with a generator on is advertising. So that's another thought to think about for later on. But most people are looking at running their refrigerator or freezer. That's it. If they're halfway smart, they already have kerosene lanterns, battery-powered lanterns and radios and whatever else they want. So they don't really need to run the whole house, but they want to make sure that their food is kept safe. So that would be like 3,500 to 6,000 watt generator. Roll around, you can buy them at Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Craigslist, that kind of stuff. And a generator isn't the end all of it. You also have to have proper cabling, proper extension cords. You can't just grab the extension cord you use for the Christmas tree, plug it into a generator, and think you're going to run your freezer. You've got to get like heavy gauge extension cords, the locking cords, special ones that go for the generators. And it's always smart to figure out how much wattage you're going to need to run whatever you're going to run. I don't know about you, Vinny, but I get people all the time saying, "Yeah, I want a generator that can run, my microwave, my stove, my my hot tub." I'm like, okay, well that's probably going to run you about $20,000, to get a truck mounted diesel generator. But what do you need to run? Not what do you want to run?
That's a very good point, because if you want to run all these things, you have to size the generator to run all these heavy electric consumption devices. And the feeding of these large generators is unbelievable how much fuel they will use. So the bottom line is find out what the minimum that you can stand being with, the minimum number of devices, and size your generator just a little bit larger than that. That's it. That way you'll use the least amount of fuel. Kurt, do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Kurt and I will be right back. We're going to talk more about generators. And so we've got a little over an hour and 14 minutes. We'll be talking about generators. And I believe we're going to be able to answer most of your questions. And when we get to the part about silencing them, I'll tell you how I've silenced ours. And it was really loud. No kidding. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us, and we're talking about generators. We've got one here at the farm, and it's always on standby, and we're going to talk about things you need to consider. Kurt, where would you like to go at this point? Did I lose Kurt? Okay.
Yep,
Kurt,
am I here?
Yep, you're
I'm
there
here now.
Where would you like
there's
to?
This damn,
where would you like
there's
to?
This button on the side of my headset here that says mute, and I keep bumping it. So, okay, so I want to add something to what you said. just before the break. Yes, it's smart. You add up, you figure out what you got. I got a test freezer, got an upright freezer, got a refrigerator, and I want to run some fans for spreading the heat around that I have for my wood fireplace or what have you. So you say, okay, 3,500 watt generator work fine, but here's what people don't think about. There's something called surge. When you start an electrical appliance, there's a surge of amperage that comes up first, kickstart it. You have to compensate for that. So if you figure you're going to need 3,000 watts, get a 4,000 watt generator. Or if you think you're going to need 4,000 watts, get a 4,500 or 5,000 watt generator. It's going to cost you a little bit more in fuel, but you don't have to worry about breakdowns or the thing kicking itself off. A generator will turn itself off if you overtask it, or it'll burn out. So I just wanted to add that.
No question. No question about that. So, class, what Kurt Wilson's talking about is sometimes you see your air conditioner when it kicks on, you'll see the lights dim. That's what he's talking about. So typically, the current inrush to start a compressor motor or an electric motor is 2 to 3 times the normal run current. So what are we talking about? Well, a microwave oven, for example, has that motor that starts up. Okay, there's a motor that turns the turntable, and there's an inrush of current. There's the same thing at a greater degree happens when you start up your air conditioning system or your heat pump or your air circulation system in your forced air heating system, or your refrigerator compressor or your freezer compressor. So motors or well pumps, okay, those are the ones that draw the most current when they start up. So Kurt's absolutely right. You do need to oversize for the starting current. Now, one way to accommodate having a generator just a little bit bigger, like you said, so if you need 4,000 watts, you go for 4,500. What you do is you start those devices before you add the next devices. Okay, so you get your motor started, your freezer, for example, then you can turn on your electric lights. And of course, the most important thing is probably to reduce your electric consumption as much as possible. So we're talking about low power consumption lighting rather than incandescent lighting, because every watt that you save is money you don't have to put into the generator watts, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what LED lights are handy for.
Mm-hmm. So from my perspective, Kurt, at the farm, I'm interested in survival. And what does that mean? Well, I've already put in a gas cook range, if you will. So we don't have an electric range because, frankly, if you want to power an electric range with a generator, wow, it will take a much larger generator than you would expect. Forget it.
Yeah.
If you want to power an electric hot water heater, forget an electric hot water heater. If you want to power your electric clothes dryer, forget it. So if you think that you want to be prepared, you need to, in my mind, have a gas cooking and some kind of hot water other than electric, which could be propane or natural gas. In our case, we heat our hot water with wood and a wood stove, and we can talk about that in another broadcast. We don't have an electric clothes dryer. Now, if you want a clothes dryer, next time you get one, you might want to consider, if you have natural gas, a gas clothes dryer. Or forget the clothes dryer, because in those kinds of situations where things are really bad, you're not going to be worried about wrinkles and drying your clothes quickly.
That's what a clothesline's for.
That's what we have. We have them inside and outside. We have an electric clothes dryer, but we haven't hooked it up. It's only been 13 years, and we're not going to hook it up. It just holds that place. Yeah. Well, I bought a used clothes dryer, propane, on Craigslist. I think it was about $75, just in case we ever decide that we want to have a clothes dryer. Yeah. Haven't had one in 13 years. So we're going to talk more about generators when we come back. So we're going to shed those watts first, and then we're going to power the devices that you need safely. We'll be right back. Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Kurt Wilson's with us, armchairsurvivalist.com. Armchairsurvivalist.com. We're talking about generators today. And Kurt, during the top of the hour break, I I went out to the metering system that powers our farm via solar power, and we are using right at this moment about 1,600 watts. Now, what that means is I'm running the broadcast. We've got shop lights. We have 7 lights running in the automotive shop where our son is working on equipment, farm equipment. We've got the refrigerator and freezer and, all the background kinds of things going on. So right now, average power consumption at the farm is 1,600 watts. So, class, when you look at these generators, keep that in mind. That's what we're using. Now, we're pretty frugal. We don't leave lights on just to make sure that they still work. We turn lights off when we're not using them, okay? So, but we do use electricity, and I've got 3 computers running right here in the studio, and the mixer and the associated other peripherals necessary. Plus, the rest of the farm is running at 1,600 watts. So, Kurt, let's continue on with this discussion. I want to make sure that our class understands about how many watts is typically being used. And I think we're probably a typical user of electricity at 1,600 watts.
Well, let me give the class a reality check on what wattage is. I had a Christmas tree lot, and I had light bulbs, and each light bulb was 100 watts, all right? So I could only run, if I was running 1,600 watts, well, what is that? That's 16 light bulbs.
That's right.
So people don't understand when you say, when you or somebody says, this is how much watts I'm running right now, they go, oh, that's a lot. No, it isn't. Do you run LEDs out in the shop?
No, I've got an investment of over about 40 fixtures, fluorescent fixtures. So we're staying with that. So I bought a lifetime supply of fluorescent 8-foot tubes and 4-foot tubes. And I'm serious. I got a pickup truck load of fluorescent light bulbs.
Let me tell you something. 4-foot LED tubes are 1/10 the cost to use as fluorescent. I know, I've gone through it. I used to recycle fluorescent tubes in Los Angeles. But it's 1/10 the cost, and the light is so much more effective. It says check it out sometime. Get something, hook them up, and you will tell the difference. And you don't need a balance, by the way.
Okay, I know. I have in our kitchen. We have the can lights, and we put in the retrofit LEDs. I like them because they have a filter on them. I've been in stores where they have the little LED. Oh, they must have 200 or 300 of them per 8-foot tube, and I don't like the light. It bothers me. I like the ones that are filtered. So, but instead of spending $10 or $20 per tube, I decided to spend 50 cents per used LED bulb. Used fluorescent bulb. Nobody wants them anymore. Yeah. Nobody wants them, and but because we have enough electricity to run our farm on fluorescent lights, I decided to stay with it. So it was an economic decision. For us.
Smart for what you're doing. Smart, yeah. But just people really need to understand. You don't need to run everything in your house on the generator. I have. That's right. This is strange, but I have 6 generators here. I have one that the Chinese farmers use to pump water in their fields. It's the size of a bowling ball. It's maybe 100 to 150 watts, and you carry it around. It's 2-cycle, and you actually have a knob to turn it from 12 volts all the way up to 150 volts. Okay, it's so cute.
Yeah,
I used to use it a lot. I don't use it anymore. And then a 1,200 watt generator, then a 2,500, then a 3,500, then a 4,500, and then I've got a 7,000. That is mounted on concrete, and it runs on propane, natural gas, or gasoline. So I got all of them. So if I just need to run a freezer or two, I don't need to fire up the big boy. So that's what I do.
Okay. You have 3 times more than we do. We have 2 generators. We have one that's a PTO driven generator class. What this is it's very heavy. And there's a shaft that is a telescoping shaft that you can hook up to the back of a tractor. And it takes 40 horsepower to run this. 40 horsepower. That's real horsepower. That's not, these imaginary horsepower ratings that a lot of gasoline generators have. This is real horsepower, net horsepower. So it takes a diesel tractor to run this particular generator, and it's 25,000 watts. We've never had to use anywhere near that. It's trailer mounted, but the idea was, well, we probably have a battery in a tractor that works. We have a small 20 horsepower diesel tractor that can drive this. And I've mounted this onto a trailer. So if you have a ball hitch on your tractor, you can just drop this little trailer. I bought the trailer at Harbor Freight, and I mounted it. And so I can just roll this thing around. It's really heavy. It's probably 500 pounds. But the way I have it balanced, one person can kind of drag this around, hook it up to a tractor. Now, I said 40 horsepower to get 25,000 watts, but you don't need that much. So what I can do is I can drive this with a little 4-cylinder or 3-cylinder diesel tractor, 20 horsepower, and I can use about a half a gallon of fuel an hour, and I can power the entire farm with that. That's our backup generator. Our main generator is a military surplus, and the actual model number is MEP-002A. This weighs 1,164 pounds. It's 2-cylinder. It's very heavy. It's the size of a refrigerator lying on its side or on its back. It uses about 4 quarts of oil in its lubrication system. It's got multiple fuel filters. This is a heavy-duty, continuous run generator. It only runs at 1,800 RPM. And I think I paid, I'm guessing, between $1,200 and $1,400 for it. This particular one is extremely loud. You could hear it 3 blocks away. Unless you get it with what's called the ASK, the acoustic sound kit. Now, the sound kit is just a steel skin covering the generator with some fiberglass insulation. It's well done, but it really drives up the cost of this particular generator. I'm looking at one on the internet. It's for sale for $3,000. $3,000. No, just the generator.
Oh.
Without the kit. Now, this is way high priced. But you can probably find this particular generator, the MEP-002A, military surplus generator. We can probably still get them for about $1,800 or so. And they come in various conditions. Some of them are painted desert camo. Some are painted green like the Vietnam era. And that's what they are, Vietnam era generators. And that 5,000 watt generator can power our whole farm without, accepting air conditioning or the heat pump. It can't do that. But it can run the well. It can run the air circulation system. It can power the lighting. So what I'm saying, for me, 5,000 watts is enough. But that's a real 5,000 watts. That's not one of these Chinese generators that's overrated where they say 5,000 watts and they really mean like 2,500 watts. Okay, so it's a real 5,000 watts. And it works great and uses about a half a gallon of diesel per hour. So that's what we do. Now, what are your thoughts about gasoline versus... oh, by the way, this generator is rated to run at least 8,000 hours. 8,000 hours. And when you have a generator, here's what typically happens. There's a storm, and people go, oh, still don't have any lights. Looks like, wow, it's like half a day already. Oh, it's now a day. We're starting to get cold. Let's go see if they have any generators at Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart or wherever. Yeah. And they get sold out really quickly, right? By the next day, they're all gone. And there are two things. That happens. Then what happens is people don't realize how much fuel these gasoline generators use, like a gallon an hour. So they've got a 5-gallon can. They go, oh, this is good. This will last us 5 hours. And then they realize how much fuel they need to keep these things running, these gasoline-powered big box store generators, like a gallon an hour, literally. Now, the more you load it up, the more electricity you demand from it, the harder it works, the more fuel it consumes. But it still consumes a minimum. And I would think that if you got by with a half a gallon an hour, that'd be a wish. But what happens next is
that's why I have so many different generators.
Yeah, you size them for what's going on, right?
Yeah, and I tell people ask me all the time, what size generator should I get? And I would ask them, why do you want a generator? Well, I want to keep my house powered. Why? Well, in case the power goes out. Well, what are you going to power? You're going to power your microwave? You want to power your electric range? You want to power your heat pump? You're going to figure about $10,000.
Right.
And what? I can see these, and they tell me, I see generators all the time for $500 to $1,000. Yeah, there's your freezer, your refrigerator, and some minor lighting throughout the house. You don't need all of that. And the other thing with a generator, again, you mentioned fuel. You got to store fuel.
Yes.
If it's gasoline, even well-treated gasoline is going to last maybe 5 years. Diesel, you treat it, it's 10 years plus. But if you have propane never goes bad. You'll store propane for 100 years, as long as it doesn't leak out of the canister. The drawback with propane is that if you got a 10,000 watt generator and you're running it on propane, you're only going to get about 7,500 watts out of it. It's lower. But the engine will last longer because there's no contaminant.
All correct. All correct. You'll use more fuel. You'll use more propane than you will gasoline. And you'll use more gasoline than you will diesel.
Right.
Diesel's the most efficient.
The best.
Yep, we'll be right back. So we're talking about generators. And I believe I heard Kurt Wilson say that diesel's the best. And I absolutely agree with him. The generators that we have here on our farm are diesel. And for the reasons that he mentioned, one, diesel lasts a long time. And you don't have to worry about the problems with carburetors gumming up from the fuel evaporating or volatilizing and leaving your carburetor stuck if you have a gasoline-powered generator. But what you can do, with diesel, we have diesel here for the farm, for our tractors, but our particular generator, because it's heavy, it's so heavy that when we put it in the garage, where we have a freestanding garage where we planted this generator, and we have a 3-point hitch on a 4,000-pound tractor. It's a 40-horsepower tractor, but it weighs about 4,000 pounds. So we have a boom pole that comes out the back of this as an implement on the back of the tractor. We hooked it up on the hook to pick up this generator and put it in position, back it into the garage. But we had to have a couple people sit on the front of the tractor because this generator was so heavy that it lifted the front of a 4,000-pound tractor, lifted the front wheels off the ground. I'm sure you've seen these kinds of improvising methods to do things, but that's what we had to do. But this generator is awesome. Now, I paid twice the price for this used generator that you would pay for a big box store generator of about the same capacity, right? But it will last probably another couple decades if we take care of it.
The generator you got has cast iron heads as opposed to the aluminum heads that right. are on most of the generators you buy. It's actually built like an engine should be built. So people have a comparison. When you keep saying 40 horsepower tractor, my first car was a 59 VW Bug. It was only 36 horses. Your tractor's stronger than my first car.
Well, and that's a small tractor. A 40 horsepower tractor is a small tractor. And now this generator is really loud. It doesn't come with a muffler. It just has an exhaust pipe. It's a military generator. And since they're making all kinds of noises anyway, and with bombs exploding and rifles going off and so forth, what's a little generator noise? Well, they didn't worry about the muffler. So I had to fabricate a muffler. And what I did was I went to the local muffler shop, and I said, I would like to buy some exhaust pipe. Can you bend it for me? And the guy said, sure. And I said, okay, here are the lengths. Here's the lengths. Here's the bends at these locations. And so he made a whole bunch of pieces for me to my specifications. And I said, okay, so now I need a muffler. Now, what do you have in a small car 4-cylinder muffler that will fit this pipe? And he said, well, I've got one for an import. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So I bought a muffler for about $20 brand new, and I bought all the pipes. So when it was all done, it was about $40 worth of muffler and pipe. And I bought the muffler clamps, and I put it all together. So I have this fabricated exhaust system hooked up to this diesel generator in the garage, and then I welded together a heat shield. So I have a heat shield that protects the garage from burning down from the exhaust heat, and then I have a through-the-wall exhaust outlet, and I have a heat shield I made that's air-cooled. So I have a double wall through the wall, a double wall pipe through the wall to keep the garage from burning down, and it exhausts outside. And what you hear is it's really quiet. I mean, it sounds like a car running. If I close the garage door, you can't hear this roaring diesel engine that runs at 1,800 RPM. So that's what I did, and that was one of the first things you mentioned. Generators are loud, right? And they are.
Right.
So you can't hear ours. Literally, you can't hear it. So that's an important thing. And you can, in class, you can fabricate your own. Or you can go to a guy who's got a welder and tell him, this is what you're trying to do, and they can make something for you. So that's all possible. But getting back to the fuels, I think the fuel is, once you decide what size generator you need, and if you decide 5,000 watts is, right for you, you can then go shopping. But then you need to pick the fuel. Now, if you're going to use a gallon an hour of gasoline, is that something that you're prepared for? Because what if you have an outage for a couple of days? How do you handle that? Do you turn the generator on and off? So I'd like to hear, Kurt, what your thoughts are on selecting the fuel, and then how do you use the generator? Do you just run it until the power comes back on? That's kind of hard to do, right? So we'll talk about that when we come back. Kurt Wilson's with us, and we've been talking about generators, and this was at the request of truck driver Jay, and here he is. Welcome, truck driver Jay.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, or good morning, I guess. Hey, now, I have several questions. Absolutely excellent show. You covered some really good information. How do you know how much wattage? Because when you have a generator, generators are rated by wattage. How do you know what appliances are drawing how much wattage?
Okay, we've got the answer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt?
Well, I cheat. I have this little thing that plugs in the wall that I plug the appliance into. It's called kilowatt. And it actually tells you how many watts you're using. I got it right here.
If you go to eBay, I did during the break, you can get one for $21 shipped, no tax.
You can get two of them. You can get two of them for basically $16 each. And that's what I got.
Okay. Kilowatt. KILL-A-watt. W-A-T-T. I have one too. Go ahead. Okay. Please continue.
Yeah, and then you just plug it in. You plug it in like you got a refrigerator, all right? So you plug this in the wall, then you plug the refrigerator into it. And you let it run. Just let it run for a couple hours or even a whole day. And then look at the screen. It's the LCD screen. It'll tell you how many watts. Write it down. And write down what it's for. It's for my upright refrigerator in the house. And you write down whatever it says. And then you check each thing that you think you want to have running. Because you don't need to check you don't need to do your lights. And that's the thing people don't think about. You don't need to do your lights. You're smart enough. You got kerosene lanterns, or you got propane lanterns, or you got battery-powered lanterns or lights or something like that. We're not talking about grid down type thing. We're talking about powers out for a day or two or three or four. So go ahead.
If you use LED lighting, if you have LED light bulbs, the screw-in kind, they use so little electricity, it's insignificant. I'm talking 10 watts. Okay, 10 watts. So if you're looking at a 5,000 watt generator, 10 watts is insignificant. Okay. The things that are significant are the devices that have heavy power cords. Your toaster, forget it. Your toaster is looking for about 1,500 watts. Are you going to devote 1/3 of your generator to your toaster? I think you're going to go without toast, right?
Same thing with the microwave.
Yeah. Your stove, you're going to go with, if you have an electric stove, forget it. I mean, literally forget it. If you have your generator configured to your electric stove, and let's say you have a 5,000 watt generator, and you turn on the burner, your generator is going to stall. If you turn on your hot water heater, your generator, electric hot water heater, your generator is going to stall. If you turn on your heat pump for heat in the winter, or your heat pump for air conditioning in the summer, your generator is going to stall. So what you do is you say, what can I live without? And how can I get around having, when this happens, typically it's cold. That's when people are using a lot of electricity. That's when the power lines seem to get overloaded and sometimes fail. Or ice storms or snowstorms when it's cold. So think about how are you going to have heat, because you're not going to be able to have a plug-in electric heating unit run on your generator. It's not viable. So you're going to have some other kind of heat and some other kind of cooking and some other way of heating your hot water. So you get rid of those appliances that use electricity, like the hot water heater, like the stove. Okay? You're not going to be doing any ironing either. So an easy way to figure out what the heavy power consumers are is look at the power cords. The heavier the power cord, the more power consumption. And then read the amps. It'll say 120 volts at 10 amps. And you multiply volts times amps and you get watts. So 120 volts times 10 amps is 1200 watts. 1200 watts. 4 of those devices will tax your generator to the max if you have a 5,000 watt generator. And by the way, these generators, these gasoline generators, are not rated continuous duty. They're just temporary. And they only last 30 days. If you were to start one up on the first of the month and run it and then keep fuel in it, it would be worn out at the end of the month. Worn out. Shot. Because they're not designed to last a long time. Not like the one that I bought, the military surplus, that will run 8,000 hours continuously.
That's good information.
Yeah. So there's another alternative, which we haven't talked about. Kurt, would you like to talk about inverters instead of a generator?
Well, that would be if you have a battery power, like solar.
Well, here's what I was thinking. I have an inverter that we have a Jeep, and we use this Jeep around the farm, and the Jeep has a 12-volt battery. That's the battery that starts the Jeep. It's an old Jeep. It's a 1994. It's a work Jeep. It's nothing to be real proud of, that's for sure. And if we need electricity around the farm where there is none, we take a 2,500 watt inverter with us. And it has like clamps, battery clamps, like booster cable clamps. And you can just clip them on, raise the hood, clip them onto the Jeep battery. I can start the Jeep and run it. And I can run a power saw, a plug-in power saw on this inverter. I can run a small welder, a very small welder, on this inverter. I can run a well pump, a small one, on this inverter. I can run electric lighting on this inverter. And typically, an inverter, you can get one for a couple $100. Now, it's going to be 120 volts. You're probably not going to find one 240 volts. But you can use that temporarily, too. So here's the thing. Here's another alternative. If you have a vehicle, you probably have, on average, a half a tank of fuel. So if there's an ice storm and you don't have a generator, but you did have an inverter, you could start your vehicle, hook up your inverter, run some extension cords, and power that freezer or that refrigerator. Maybe one at a time. Maybe just the refrigerator or just the freezer or just the lighting. And then when you're done running the freezer to keep it cold, then you shut off the vehicle.
I got one thing I got to make sure we cover before anything else is said, is that maintenance on these things is vital.
Yes.
You need to change the oil. See, these are motors that are running hard. They use oil. And never buy a generator, and I've seen these, that it's what's called a sealed generator. It's like compressors. They have sealed compressors, so you never have to add oil. That's a throwaway. Literally throw it away. So make sure you know what oil goes in your generator, and make sure you use the highest quality you can. I always use castor oil. And here's another trick, and there's some people there are pros and cons on this, but I've never seen it treat me bad. I use a type of Slick 50. You know what Slick 50 is?
It's PTFE, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's a trick behind that. If you get a quart of Slick 50 at Walmart, only a cup of it is actually PTFE or Teflon. The rest of it's Carrier. So what I do is I shake it up real good, and I pour it into a quart jar, and I let it sit overnight. And by morning, the treatment itself is settled to the bottom. So I suck out the oil carrier, and then I add what's left into my generator. And it treats the walls inside of there. I've actually increased my blood pressure. I've actually increased the compression of the motor using that. I saved one. I went to a yard sale, and this guy had a 4,000-watt generator for sale. It smoked like a pig. And it was a kind that didn't use rings. It used something else inside of it. It was just a cheap, 4,000-watt generator. I don't remember what it was, but I gave him $25 for it. It purred like a kitten, but it smoked. I took it home. I cleaned it up. I flushed it out, and I put I didn't use any oil. I used all Teflon treatment inside the motor. It was 3 quarts, and I let it run on no load for about 2 hours. And by the time I was done, there was no smoke in the thing. I still have it, and it doesn't smoke anymore.
Now, you're bringing up a really good point, Kurt, and that is that these generators that you get at the big box stores are like lawnmower engines. And when they run the generator, they run at 3,600 RPM. A gasoline-powered generator typically runs at 3,600 revolutions per minute. That is wide open throttle, okay? Wide open throttle. Now, when you think about it, when you're driving your automobile, how often do you run at wide open throttle? Not too much, right? Because you know that your engine is not going to last very long. It's really hard on the machinery. So your generator, when you're running it, is running at wide open throttle. That's why they don't last very long. So that's why these generators only last about a month. And typically you would change the engine oil every 25 hours. Well, it's 24 hours in a day. That means if you have one of these generators running continuously, big box store generators, you need to change the oil every day. Every day.
Oh, just before last break, you asked, how long do you run the thing till it runs out of gas at the end of the day? Well, here's what we do. On our freezers and refrigerators, if the power's out, we cover them with moving pads to hold any of the coldness into the refrigerator, because they all leak. The seals will leak out. The chest freezers, we open up and we lay moving pads inside on top of the food and then close the lid. And I run the generator for about 2 hours, and then I turn it off for, about 2 hours. Because there's nothing that we have that I have to use. I have 12-volt TVs, 12-volt radio, 12-volt lights, kerosene lights. I got all that stuff. I can run my computer. I have a laptop. I can run it on a car battery. So I'm not concerned about that. So we run it. We cycle it, 2 on, 2 off, 2 on, 4 off if we're going to be gone for a while. And coldness is just fine.
Yeah. So the takeaways from this class so far, from what I've heard Kurt say, diesel is your best choice, but it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be heavier. Gasoline is an option, but you're going to use a lot of it. And if you go to natural gas or propane, the engines are going to last longer. We'll be right back. So, Truck Driver Jay, did we answer some of your questions about generators today?
I still got one more. Now, Vince, I know you have solar power, and I'm guessing you have a very large battery to store the power you generate from the solar panels. How long will a large battery last under normal load? Okay,
our solar array can, at the current time, can deliver about 25 kilowatts of electricity per day. That's, when the sun's shining and it's a nice, bright, sunny day. I can charge our batteries, and I can get through the night if I'm careful. Now, the battery bank is 40 cells, 40 individual batteries or cells that make up a battery, and each cell is 1.2 volts. And if you add that together, you get a 48-volt battery bank. It's 500 ampere hours. It weighs 4,400 pounds, the battery bank.
Wow.
So it's pretty substantial. It's about 8 feet long.
Mine weighs more than that. Mine's a Prius. But seriously, but yeah, you use a Prius and you hook up your inverter. I've got a 5,000 watt inverter I hook up to my Prius. The interesting thing with the Prius is it only runs when it's needed to charge the battery. So I park it in the garage. I have an exhaust pipe running out of the garage, and I start the car and I leave it running. If I wanted,
how much is a used Prius with a battery bank that's viable? Can you get one for 4,000 or 5,000?
Yeah. Oh yeah. In fact, you can, if all you want is the battery bank, you can buy that on eBay.
And how much would that cost? Over 1,000?
Probably about 1,500 to 2,000.
Okay, and so you'd have to have a pickup truck, a heavy pickup truck to get it,
or a empty Prius. Yeah, pickup.
Okay.
They ship.
So Jay,
it's not that expensive. It's a great idea. There's a guy on YouTube that's showing that how to do that. But you got a great idea with having emergency service, have an inverter. I got a Dodge truck that's got a built-in inverter, 2,500 watt inverter. Just plug it in the dash. But there's the thing with generators, people, and this is the bottom line. You have to take care of it. Here's the key. The physical universe, and you know this, Vinny, the physical universe, no matter what it is in there, is designed to last a specific time if you do minor care. You can extend the life of particles in the physical universe by increasing the type, the quality, and the duration of the care you take of them. It's just like a shotgun. If all you do is shoot it and never clean it, that thing's going to corrode out on you in a few years. But if you shoot it and clean it and oil it and wipe it down and keep it in a silicone bag, it'll last 100 years. And it's the same thing with the generator. Generators put out a lot of heat, a hell of a lot of heat. You have to be able to disperse the heat. You cannot shove a generator in a small room like a shed and then close all the doors. And this shouldn't have to be said, but we have an article in the newspaper at least once a month up here. I'm in North Idaho. It's a motor, guys. It puts out carbon monoxide. You cannot keep it enclosed in your garage. And people do that. And
Absolutely
then the
true.
carbon monoxide seeps through the door into the house, and the whole family ends up dead by morning. So
Absolutely
common
true.
sense is a prerequisite to using this kind of stuff. And that's the real point, common sense.
And when we use our diesel generator, the garage doors are opened. There's roof vents, there's E-vents, and the exhaust is plumbed outside. Jay, I hope we answered some of your questions, and feel free to ask more, and we can do even more in-depth discussion on generators. The bottom line, our pleasure. The bottom line is the big box store generators are designed to run once in a while, every few years, for a few hours. That's really how they're designed. They're not designed to last 40 years. Kurt Wilson, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
Yeah.